Hello, this is Cree of Creative Corner, and this is the Create Now series where we talk about ServiceNow and the Now platform. As with all platforms, ServiceNow has many black box capabilities that simplify how we customize and configure the system. Probably the most magical parts of ServiceNow start at the database. Joining us now is Aaron Prohaska to talk about and demonstrate the basics of data tables and all that comes with one in the Now platform.
Thanks, Cree, for the introduction. I am Aaron Prohaska. We will be going over tables and the database within ServiceNow in this video. First thing we're going to do is sign into our developer instance, and this is through the developer site, developer.servicenow.com. If you don't have a developer instance, you can go there, sign up for an account, and be able to get your hands on ServiceNow. So for those who haven't used the developer instance before, the first time you come in, it will have to request the instance, which will take a little while, and then the instance will fall asleep when it's not in use. So when you log in, sometimes you won't have the start building button right away. It'll have to wake up after about a minute or so. It'll wake up and then the button will be enabled and you can log in. So we are logged in as an admin, so we have full access to everything in the system. And we're gonna be talking about the database today. It is the table structure is kind of core. It is the most core and fundamental piece to the Now platform. It's going to give you the ability to stand up custom applications and make changes to out-of-the-box stuff really easy. So first thing to know is that unlike, I guess, traditional full stack development where you would have your hands directly on the database, in ServiceNow, the database is abstracted from you, meaning you never touch the database directly. So if we type in tables on the left navigation bar, you'll see system definitions tables. I have it listed as a favorite. So it's here, system definition tables. And if you star it, it'll become one of your favorite items. But so we click that. And what we'll see is that we have a table of tables. So we can see all the tables within our ServiceNow instance. And again, an instance is a single environment of ServiceNow. So if you're working for a company that runs ServiceNow and develops in ServiceNow, you may have a dev instance and a UAT instance and a training instance, as well as your production instance. This is my developer instance. So as soon as I start making changes in here, no other instance of ServiceNow is being affected, only this one instance at dev 84688. So it's our sandbox. So right off, again, we have a table of tables and we have a new button. If we wanted to create a new table, we could click that. And we're dealing with a ServiceNow form, a ServiceNow intake form. We're not logging into a database. We're not using some database management tool. We are building it directly in ServiceNow. And so we'll just create a new test table. And so this is the label is what is seen in the application, whereas this name is the actual table name within the database, and if you were to code against the table, you would reference it using this notation. Custom tables always get a little X underscore at the beginning. We'll come back to what extends means and these modules. For now, I'm going to set them to true. And we will add a field as well. So this is our test field, and we will make it a string. And there's a whole, and I'll show you the different field types in a moment. But for now, just showing you the basics of creating a table so that you can see that it now will show in the list of tables. We're going to make this test field our display value, and again we'll explore that in a little bit. So when we click save, now when I look in my list, I can do a search here, test table, and now we see in my list of tables it exists. Now we did affect the database through the ServiceNow interface. By clicking save, it saved the information about the table into our table of tables, and it also interacted with the actual database to create that table, and we could actually start using it immediately. So creation of tables, very easy. It's click of the button, fill in some form values, clicking save, and you now have your own custom table. So let's go look at those field types. What kind of fields can we put on a table? Oh, look, we created test field, but we also got these other fields just as part of the platform. So it has some audit fields, who updated it, when it was updated, who created a record. So these aren't who created the table, these are fields on the table. So for a particular record within my test table, that record was created by who, it was created at what time, it was updated by who, and then we have the data that goes along with that table, in our case called test field. So if we wanted to add some other fields, you can either click new and it'll take you to another form, but also ServiceNow has the ability to edit in the grid. This isn't always enabled for everybody. That's a setting, and we can go through settings in another video. But for right now, we're just going to use the quick entry mode, and we'll call it test field 2, just so we can see what we have as options here. Now, when we look and we see this kind of box that we can type in and things will start popping up, this is a reference field, meaning it's referencing some other part of ServiceNow that gives you a list of items, and that's a bigger subject that we'll cover in another video. But for right now, you'll notice there's a little magnifying glass. If we click it, we can see all of the different field types. So you can have an audio field, true false, which is a boolean. You can have a calendar date time. You can have a choice field, which means like a drop down. I've never actually used the color type. I'm assuming you can pick system colors. These two we will cover in depth in other videos. Conditions and condition strings. These allow you to build filters for like queries for the database and store them in a table, and then those can be a configuration point. Again, it's a more complex subject that we'll cover later. Currency, decimals, here's the standard date times, and some of these, really require their own videos. Field name and, let's see here, down here, table name. Those will work in conjunction with other fields, such as that condition field. So again, we'll cover that in more depth later. So right off the bat, though, you'll see your main ones. Though you see string, the date time, like we said, decimal. There should be an integer, or maybe it's number. And again, you can always filter. Yeah, there it goes, integer. So you got your basic field types that you can choose from. And so if we wanted to make this one, and we'll do it as a date, time. And now if we can either click update, and an update button will save it and return you to your previous screen, or you can right click and click the save button, which will keep us right here where we're at. And those are just like little things about ServiceNow, how it works. And we'll see that a new field was created. So again, we had a table of tables. We also have a table of columns, right? So everything is very table driven. Even your interaction with the database is driven by tables within the database. Okay, so the magic of ServiceNow. So we've created this table, right? But how do we get data into it? How do we look at data in the table? Do we have to go build those forms ourselves? Well, ServiceNow takes care of a lot of that for you. So on here on the table form, there's a bunch of related links, and it'll take you direct. You can click on some of these links and see the stuff that was created for you. So if we click show list, we see a list of records for the table. As of now, nothing has been created, so there's no records to display. I'm clicking the back button, and then we can see show form. This is your data entry form. This is your create and update form. So we can add some information. This is a test, and we have a date. Oh, and it comes with a date picker. So just by picking a date time format, you get a date picker with a time section. And we can either click submit, which has the same functionality as an update button. If I click it, it'll take me back to the previous page, or I can right click and save and stay where I'm at. This time I'm going to click submit, and you'll see it took me back to the table form where I was previously. So now if I click that show list, now I have a record, and it automatically added those fields for me. And we'll go in other videos into how to configure this layout, like if you want to only show certain fields. And then there are concepts called views that allow you to create different sets of fields for different situations. But we'll save that for another video. So, okay. This is the, again, we didn't have to develop anything. We added a new table, we added some fields, and we already have a user interface for viewing all the records in that table, and we have a interface for updating, deleting, modifying the data. If I change it and I click up, I click delete, and it says, do you want to delete? No. Alright, update, now you'll see that the field was updated. We had to write no code for our CRUD functionality. If you're not knowledgeable in what CRUD means, it's create, read, update, delete. CRUD, CRUD. This is what we call the native view. These views here, and these are like your quickest to market forms. We don't have to change much. If you just need to get some data into the database so that you can start doing work, you create a new table and you get these forms. Boom, boom, boom. Some people want, or some companies might want a more whiz-bangy interface, something a little more modern. So ServiceNow came up with the what they call the service portal, which we can go into more detail in other videos. But just to show you what it comes with, so the out of the box comes with a service portal. It kind of looks like this, and it comes with its own set of forms. So if I do form, table equals, so we need that table name that we created. Now, one thing as an admin we can do is we can right click on a header and go to configure. In this case, I'm going to configure the table because I want that internal name, because not only is this how you code to it, but it also is how the URLs work. And so here in the service portal, they have a out-of-the-box feature to load in any table form within the system. Now, navigating in things require some setup, but the magic of ServiceNow, you get a form that you can interact with. There's also a list view. And we could see, here's my test record, and I have a new button, just kind of like I have in the native form. So all this stuff comes out of the box. It also comes with a mobile interface, and there's a new feature called Workspace that you can leverage as a UI. So you get a number of mechanisms to interact with your table just by creating the table. The last thing I want to show you for today is the fact that your table also comes out, as soon as you create it, with APIs. So this is a little test interface so that you can test out APIs within your system. This happens to be a RESTful API call. ServiceNow generates both REST and SOAP APIs for every table in the system. So you don't have to develop any of that code. And so now I should be able to look for my test table. And right now I'm going to do a get, which just means it's going to retrieve records. It gives you all the information about the request. And you'll see it returned my record with this is a test 2, all out of the box. I didn't have to develop anything for the ability to integrate into my new table within ServiceNow. So again, by creating a table in ServiceNow, you get your basic entry forms, your list layout so that you can see all the records within your table. You get a service portal view, though you will need to do some setup to have access. And then that one more thing. We go back to our table, or actually, I get navigation out of the box too. How did that happen? Well, again, I'm using my right click. So for list views, you right click on the header to get to your configure. And, well, you missed it. When we create a new table, there was a couple checkboxes I said I was going to leave. By having those checked, it automatically created, they call them modules, but those are your links within your navigation bar. So you can easily, when you're setting up your table, configure if you want navigation. You can always add them later, so you could uncheck and it wouldn't add anything to the navigation bar. But if you know that you want your users to have access, you simply check it. You can even pick if you want it to fall under a submenu. So again, out of the box, you get a number of things just by creating a table. And again, you're abstracted from the technical aspect of dealing with database management because you're just using ServiceNow and filling in a ServiceNow form to build that table. So there was one other thing. There was an extends, and we will definitely cover this in a future video into more depth, but you're able to extend a table from another table. And why would you might want to do that? So one of the most important tables in ServiceNow is the task table. Because many things are tasks. There are many types of tasks in ServiceNow. So this, we would call it a base table. And there's this really handy function called show Schema Map. And so when you're getting used to ServiceNow, it is a very convenient tool to understand the system. And it shows you a few things. We're going to uncheck reference table and uncheck referencing table. So it's going to show us tables that extend from this table and tables that this table is extending. And if we scroll down, we'll see task. It doesn't extend from anything else, so this is the very base table. But then you can see all the types of tasks there are in the system. Some of your key components for ITIL. So if we look for incident task, incident. You got change task, change request. You have your service request, problem. All right, so you got incident, problem, change, service request. Those are all types of tasks. So they inherit all the abilities of a generic task and then add something to it. So let's check that out real quick. So right here in this view, I can click the little plus button and I can see all the fields that you get as a task. So you get active, you get when it was closed, who it was closed by, number of fields. And if we look at problem, problem adds some new fields to it, like category, cause notes, who resolved it, but then you also get all the task columns, and you'll see, again, active, created by, there's a one-for-one for everything in the task table within the extended columns of the problem table. So that's really handy, and you can then, if you want to create your own custom task, you can extend task and you get all of these attributes without doing anything extra. It's already there for you. Another area of the system that this is highly important is the CMDB. So when you're doing filters, you can use a star as kind of like a wild card. So I'm gonna do CMDB. Actually, and again, this is the label, this is what you see, this is the actual behind the scenes name, and I will show you why I did that in a second. So all of our CMDB tables, so let's take a basic one. So hardware is a very key table within the CMDB. A lot of things inherit from it itself, but you'll see that hardware extends configuration item. So there's a base configuration item class, so all configuration items have those particular attributes. Hardware takes those attributes and adds a little more to it. So let's just go look at the schema map for this guy. Oh, and all the CMDB tables start with CMDB_CI. So that's why I did the search for CMDB on the name, because it didn't matter what the label was, all my CMDB tables have a CMDB_CI at the beginning. So let's open up this schema map. We will get rid of our referencing tables. And we'll see here that hardware extends off of configuration item. Configuration item actually extends off of a thing called base configuration item. And then you have all these different hardware types. So each one of these act as their own unique table, but hardware is the super class to all of those. So if I look up for a particular printer, I can find that printer in hardware as well. If there's a network gear device, I can find it in the hardware as well. And then all CIs I can find at the base. So this ability to extend gives you a lot of power. And with extended tables, you get all of those same out-of-the-box functionalities that you do for a base table. So you get all your CRUD forms. You get the form view within the service portal. You get your APIs, and APIs are really important when it comes to the CMDB, because you're probably going to be interacting with other systems to get that data, especially if you don't use Discovery, which is a ServiceNow feature to fill the CMDB. And we will definitely cover CMDB in greater depths in other videos. There's a lot to it, but it's a great example of why extending a table is really important. Okay, so I think that kind of brings us to a close for today. Again, I know there's a lot of information here, and we will go into more depth into those individual concepts in their own videos, but just wanted to give you some insight into one of the most fundamental parts to the ServiceNow system. Almost everything you do gets attached to a table. So before we go, let's look at one last thing. Let's go look at the tables table. So it's called tables, that's its label, but you'll see here in the URL that the actual name is sysdb object. So I'm going to do a search for that and see it's called table, but the actual behind the scenes name is db object. And let's go look at its schema map, and this time we are going to get rid of the extends, and we're going to look at referencing. So this is showing what other tables this table references, and which table referenced this table. And we'll see some interesting things. We'll see so you got templates, dictionary entries, which is more database related items. Okay, so what I was expecting to see, for example, is business rule. Let's go see why. See why it didn't show up in that view. Business rule. Oh, I know why. So, the business rule table, you have to pick the table that the business rule is going to be tied to. A business rule is your ability to add some code that triggers like when a record is updated or inserted, something like that. So you can actually apply script there, and there's some low code mechanisms there. But it ties back to the table of tables. Now, the reason it doesn't show up in that schema view is that it points to the table via the table name. And that was one of those special fields that I said I would talk about in more detail in another video. Basically, it's a drop-down list of table names that ServiceNow manages for you. But you don't get to see when things are referenced via table name in the schema view. Whereas if let's go back and look at one of the ones we did see. We saw So one of the ones we did see was the number table. So if we go to the number table, this time we'll see table, but it's using a reference field. And a reference field means that you're referencing a record from another table. So in this case, it references the table of tables. And anything that has a reference field type will show up in your schema map in the referencing section. So that's why we didn't see the business rule, which is kind of unfortunate because that is a very important table that utilizes the table of tables. So you'd think you'd want to see that in the schema map, but that's why it didn't show up. And these are the things you learn in ServiceNow. A lot of stuff works, very consistently, and then you'll have some small features that diverge a little from the consistent nature of the framework, but you learn them quick, and again, each of these different field types have its own power, and we will definitely explore those in greater detail. Okay, so again, just kind of wrap this thing up. You're abstracted from the database. You're not touching the database directly. You are touching tables within the database, adding records to those tables, and then there's some black box magic that is happening to get that represented in the actual database. Creating tables and modifying tables are as easy as any other form in ServiceNow. You get a form view, you can add data, click the save button. Anytime you make modifications to a table or create a new table, you get some things out of the box, such as your list view in your CRUD forms. You get a service portal form, and you get your APIs. So we will definitely go into these concepts in more detail. Hopefully you have a good day, and we'll see you next time. Handing it back over to you, Cree.
Thanks, Aaron. Tables seem to be a fundamental concept within the platform and key to the ability to create quick-to-market custom applications. We will go into more depth into tables and related functionality in future videos. For now, have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you again in our corner of creativity.